Let's talk support systems. How important are they? What is your support system? What was your support system? Why did you need one? Or
I mean, you're a firefighter, like you say, pretty macho and stuff. And I did find out there's a few firefighters who had it, and I reached out to them, but they weren't evasive, but they didn't have a lot of information. So you kind of just have to go on the computer, read information here or there, talk to your doctor, about different options. But I think a support group like this, and it's great. And as time went on after I got diagnosed and had the operation, I try to make sure that what happened to me won't happen to the next person, in the sense that they won't be out there by themselves. You may not even get prostate cancer, but just get your physicals and maintain your body. Know it as best as you can, because something's going to be wrong with you one time or another. Some people call me, and several colleagues have come down with the cancer. I kind of reached out to them and told them these are some of the options. I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to claim to be a doctor. I'm not going to tell you what choice and decision to make, but I'm going to tell you there are things out there and choices you can make, and these are some of the areas of research you can get or people you can contact, even if it's just me. Just as to talk through, and that sometimes I think is a huge help, and I think that's something that it just needs to be done.
When I went through my my whole cancer journey and stuff, I didn't know where to go. The only people I was aware of who had prostate cancer were 25, 35 years older than I was. And I'm thinking, as I'm recalling it, I had several people kind of in my inner circle encourage me that I needed some support. And so just kind of following their lead, I actually reached out to a cancer wellness center that was kind of near where we went, and they had a men's support group, and so I started going to those once a week, maybe, I don't know, a month or so after my surgery. But truthfully, it was predominantly men who were 70 years old plus, and many of them dealing with really tough things. And in spite of still being in recovery, I always maintain a pretty positive outlook. So I found myself giving more of the support. I found myself being the like a facilitator. Sure. And I remember I kind of made a decision. I don't think it was selfish, but I just said, I can't do this. I can't be doing this right now for them. And so I actually backed out of it and kind of went undercover for a couple years before I could even deal with the whole cancer support thing. And then there came a time in my life, personally, once I got well past my own kind of emotional journey without support, that I realized I need to give back now, or I need to give, and so I found an organization to give to, Immerman Angels, which is a one-on-one support group, and that's how I deal with it kind of emotionally. Is like, I didn't get it, but that only encourages me to give it. No one should have to go through what I went through at the age 45.
To this day, I have not gone to a cancer support group as a cancer person. And I think because I found, since I was active in my church, I had a lot of male friends around me. We got together on a weekly basis. That became my support group, even though they didn't have cancer. And that actually turned out to be a great thing, because they're in a position to encourage. We share deeply about a lot of other stuff. And so I just want to make the point that I think support groups are where you find them in terms of how you're plugged into your community and what you do and who your friends are.
I never went to a support group, but I feel that I have a group of supporters.
Right.
And those are largely, for me, they've been women with cancer of their own, whether it was breast cancer, lymphoma, or whatever. I do have 2 men cancer buddies, one of whom had prostate cancer, one of whom is lymphoma. And I find it useful, and I think they do too, to just go out and just talk.
Yeah.
And
you can talk
one guy got in trouble with his wife because he said something like, well, Bill understands. And it was kind of like,
Live with Bill.
Yeah. Does he cook? Yeah. But there is a wavelength between two people who have experienced cancer. And that is a very powerful
Absolutely.
vibe to touch into. And I wouldn't make this journey without it.
Right.
My biggest support, other than my wife, who I put right at the top of the list, she's been a rock for me. But I have a niece, and Erin is a 10-year survivor from leukemia. And she walks the 60-mile, 3-day, 20 miles a day, she does it in Philly, she does it in Boston where she lives near, she's doing it in Chicago with one of my other nieces. She's part of the Pink Angels. They formed this group, and it's a trademark or whatever thing now, and the Pink Angels go out and walk for women's cancer issues, and she's, like I said, she's not breast cancer, she's leukemia, but she is my #1 fan. Sure. She would call me almost daily in the early days, how you doing? How you feeling? How's everything going? What do you need? And it's almost become, not a joke, but lighthearted. It's like, you're there for me, I'm there for you. And it wasn't, that one person was just incredible that they reached out. But I think the most important support group has quickly, for me, in a short couple of months following the blog and then culminating in this event today, this is my support group now. I've got blogs to have read, I've got responses that have come, and then I put a name to, he's the guy that talked about the tomatoes and being Italian. But so it's a face with a name. It's a name that is part of the named and unnamed brotherhood that we're part of, and I gotta tell you, I am so freaking energized out of this weekend. It's incredible.
For me, I wasn't one to talk a lot about it, but my support group initially was my wife and daughter. And as time went on, a close friend who I knew through business, who had been trying to get out to lunch with me, and finally I took him into my confidence and told him what was going on. And he had then introduced me to a doctor who's a wonderful friend now, who's Dr. Mike Mitro. He's a urologist in Philadelphia. And, he became an enormous source of support to me, one, because I saw him as an expert, but he's also got a wonderful way about him. So I would say a combination of my family and those two guys were my support. And then a few colleagues at work, a few of my direct reports who I was close to, became very, I took into my confidence, and they were tremendously supportive. I didn't tell everyone at work, but I told them, and they were all women. And one of them, who was a breast cancer survivor, and the other two were just really good people. And I would talk to them from time to time. And then I met Dan, and Dan, we started a relationship when I was at NASDAQ, and we ended up doing a bell closing. Then I got to know Dan differently, and would call him from time to time, and of course connected with him, and then began to read his blog, and found that to be very helpful. And I agree with Greg. This has been nothing like I expected these last few days. It's been very uplifting. It's been a combination of knowledge and just very positive and energizing to be a part of this. So that's my story.
I want to comment on support groups, because I think support groups serve two functions. They can serve an emotional function, but very often with prostate cancer support groups, they tend to gloss over that emotional side, and what they become is almost like a technical advisory group. And I think that technical advisory aspect of prostate cancer support groups is very important for a lot of men, because the decision-making function going in when you're first diagnosed is very difficult with prostate cancer. It's probably more difficult than with most other cancers, because there are many options and you have to find the one that suits your lifestyle best. When the cancer returns, there are a lot of options and things that you can do to help manage, things you can do for yourself, technical terms that are getting thrown around by the doctor that you may not understand, and all of those issues that are raised on the technical side, if you're in a good support group with a good moderator, can really help. And I've seen that. I used to co-moderate a group. I've seen it. And ironically, I've created, through the support groups, now a core of 3 or 4 very close friends. Now, I'm probably different to every one of you in this room, because I don't have I don't have a partner. I don't have kids. I live on my own. So I went through all this pretty much on my own.
There's one other aspect of support that I just want to talk about to share with guys who come behind us, and that is the importance of asking for support from your inner circle. And for me, again, as a single dad, I had a 9-year-old, a 13-year-old, and a 16-year-old at the time. And I was faced with, how do I handle this? Do I handle it stoically and keep them out of it, or choose another path? And I chose another path, and the path was to bring them into my journey in an age-appropriate way. And what I did with each of them was I gave them each a job. My youngest son's job was to hug me every day. And my oldest son's job, who plays guitar, was to play music for me when I just needed to, and my daughter's job was to be my official cheerleader. And as silly as that sounds, it was the most powerful way for them to participate in my journey.
Rewarding.
And it brought them on my journey. It gave me more than anyone in this planet gave me. And I think it's important for men to know, to not be afraid to ask and say, I need you, and you got to be careful. You got to know who you ask. You got to know, and you got to trust those people that they'll come through. But I think that's an important thing for us to share with men, is to ask for help, but ask for specific help of our friends, of our family, of our children, of those that love the people that love us.
My wife's been really the best support group I could,
Well, yeah, and so has my wife been. I mean, she's been the one who would meet me halfway down the stairs and help me the rest of the way up. But I've often said, I think cancer is harder on the caregiver than it is even on the patient.
Yes.
Because all they can do is watch.
Right.
Because initially when I got it, she was the strongest one. Because like I said, I thought, I was going right off the cliff. I just might as well just jumped off the bridge, Golden Gate Bridge. But she was the strongest one. I put on the great front. But, when I went in to get the surgery and she knew, all the routine of that, I was stronger then, but she kind of fell to the side a little bit, but she kept a good face on through the other parts of the operation, which was still really good.
And often people don't give them support. I mean, they'll ask us, or they'll say this, even as silly as we think their question or well-meaning statement is, but they don't ask the caregiver, how are you doing?
That's what impressed me about my brothers-in-law, because they thought of both of us.
Okay.
Because they said, well, Ann's going to drive you every day. That's going to be hard on her, too, because she has work to do as well. And so that was impressive. That was very impressive. And you're right. That's rare.
The partner is the second set of ears in meeting with the docs.
Yes.
And it's one thing. One of the other of you is going to be asking questions. The other is a note taker, because it's so easy to get all this information. It's all foreign and new, and it's coming at you. And that's just been a huge support for me in terms of my wife doing that.
In the radiology oncologist's office after the biopsy and after the diagnosis, and then he wanted to do his DRE as well. Well, my wife came with me for this meeting, and we were sitting in his office, and she was sitting next to me, and we talked, and he told me all the things that were possible. And then he said, now I'd like to do an exam. And he looked at my wife and said, you can leave if you want to. And she looked at me and she said, do I want to? And I said, do you? And she said, no. I said, well, sit there. Don't worry about it. Not a big deal. But that was, that kind of thing. She is your second.
That'd be sweet.
Just to add one different little perspective, on the weekend, for me, love this group, love you men. But for me, the most powerful takeaway was when we were up on that stage yesterday, when all those researchers were coming up, and I happened to be next to Rusty, and I was the first person, and a lot of you are kind of buried back behind there, so you probably couldn't see what I saw. I had to do everything possible to hold myself from just breaking into tears, because for me, it was like this flood of the last 7 years of my life, watching and wishing that those young people really understood the power and potential hope of what they're doing for guys like us. And it was a real emotionally positive moment to realize all the good things that you guys are doing for the world.
What we're doing here, what you're doing, is going to be exponential on the website. I wanted this to be a moment where men who can't participate, it's like they're looking in the window, they're looking through their camera eye and they're going, yes, I feel that way, or I feel a little bit differently, but it's all valid. And to me, that's the most important part of doing this, so that we can share and help other men, pull them out of the shadows when they're feeling isolated or lonely or vulnerable or depressed. And I think the result of this documentary is going to be an important tool for so many men. So thank you for building it.